If I pull that off, will you die?
It would be extremely painful.
You're a big guy.
For you.
So here's the question. Here's the topic that Paul and I wanted to discuss with you guys. Should you, as a professional game reviewer, as someone whose job it is to review video games, should you have to complete a game? No, let me word that. Should you have to beat a game? Should you have to roll credits on a game to do a game review? That's the question. So if it's your job, if you're someone that makes YouTube videos professionally, if you're someone that writes for a website, or back in the day, if you do a magazine review, should you have to roll credits? Should you have to beat a game if you're going to do a review on it?
Now, real quick, for the kids in chat, explain to them what a magazine is.
There are these things that we used to make out of paper, which you get from trees. There were a lot more of them back in the day, but because we made so many magazines, there's less of them now. And in these pressed paper pages, we would write words, and people knew how to read. So it's kind of like a phone screen, but you would turn them instead of swiping, and you would read about stuff. And some of the things you would read about would be a review score, where they would scale something on a 1 to 5 point scale or a 1 to 10 point scale. I personally think 1 to 10 is better. I think a 5 point scale is a cop-out, and you're lazy. To be fair, they were mostly advertisements. I wouldn't say mostly. I mean, they weren't mostly. There were ads in there, yeah, but fuck, dude, I could grab a magazine right now and I'll count how many ads are in there. But let's stay on topic. So, Paul, do you think someone should beat a video game before they review it?
I would prefer that they didn't.
You would prefer that they didn't? What?
Yeah, no, like obviously the blanket answer is going to be yes, but my
like
real
if you have to
answer
choose
is
yes
that,
or no, like without any nuance.
Blanket answer, yeah. But obviously it depends on the game. Like a puzzle game, something like Viewfinder or The Witness. I mean, fuck, like Tetris, right? Like, I'm not gonna demand that a reviewer rolls credits in that as long as they've put in, you know, a reasonable, like a 5 to 10 hour.
I feel like, especially in this day and age, though, that like the games like Tetris are fewer and farther between. Ideally, they would have to.
Tetris Battle Royale, wasn't that only a few years ago?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. There's
one-off,
yeah, but there's way more games that are like story-driven narrative. There's way more like open world collect-a-thon story-driven games than there are like, you know, good puzzle games like Tetris. Tetris 99? Yeah. Ideally, they would have to, but might not be possible for many. At least they should be clear of how much they played. So...
yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, the expectation should be that you beat the game. And if you didn't, then, like, be upfront in the video, the article, whatever, and, like, make it clear that this is, like, your opinion so far and not, like, a definitive review.
That's my thing, is if you haven't beat a game, it's not a review. And I would even argue that the less you play a game, like let's say you even beat a game and you just golden path it, you're just playing the main story missions, you're not actually immersing yourself in the experience, you're just trying to plow through, and that's not how most people are going to play. And it almost seems like your review is at a detriment because of it. Like, the more you know about a game, if you play a game and you don't like it that much, okay, so perfect example for me, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Paul. How many hours did you put in that, would you guess? Just ballpark.
A lot.
120 hours?
I mean, yeah, because of, like, DLC and junk, but...
okay, but like just like the main game.
Yeah, main game probably 70 to 85.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Because you platinum that game.
Yeah.
And you only played it 85 hours?
I hate you.
I swear to God, you must have played that game. I played it over 80 hours and I didn't complete it. Now, granted, my playtime is going to be slower because I'm usually streaming it, so I'm going to be chatting with people and stuff like that. But my whole point is, guys, I played Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And imagine if I was 20 hours in. 20 hours in is a good enough amount of time by probably Paul and a lot of other people's like expectations to get a handle on a game if it's good or not. I had all the basic mechanics of combat down. I knew the story beats that were happening. I could appreciate the graphics and the world and all that stuff. So 20 hours into Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I was really enjoying it. Loved it, as a matter of fact. But then 40 hours into Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it started to wear on me, and I was still enjoying my time with it. I was leveling up, unlocking new moves, all that stuff. The story had progressed, so I was getting a little bit more immersed in the narrative and all that. But then 60 hours hits, and I'm like, whew, man, it's time to wrap it up. Like the music that they fucking play at the video game awards, you know? Like, it was time to be done with that game. And then by the time I got to around 80 hours when we beat it, I was just going through the motions, and I was like, ugh. Fuck this game. So, as someone that beat the game in around the 80-hour mark, I would actually give the game a lower score if I were reviewing that than I would have if I was at 20 hours. And I feel like that can work in reverse too, where you might be somebody who's playing a Dark Souls type game for the first time, and you've never played a Soulsborne, and you're getting the shit beat out of you for the first few hours, and you're like, why the fuck can a skeleton kill me in one hit? But then when you persevere and you push through, it might end up being one of your favorite games because you find it so rewarding. And you might have been won over as like someone into the genre, and you might give it a higher score because of the time and effort you put into it. So did you look up your playtime for Assassin's Creed?
Sure did.
It's 200 hours?
Fuck, bro. I can't imagine that this is 100% accurate, but I platinumed it, and then of the 8 different like updates and DLCs,
yeah,
I also got all of the trophies in all of those, including the fucking like rogue mode that they added at the end.
Yeah, so what's the time?
I have over 300 hours.
Okay. So I'm going to say base game, you were probably like in between 120 to 150. I remember when you told me you platinumed it, and I know it was over 100 hours. That's why I questioned it. So I want to say you were between like 120 to 150. Let's split the difference and say like 130 hours. So would you say that at 130 hours of play of Assassin's Creed Valhalla that you would have more information obtained than someone who played the game for 40 hours?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
And like
so
very specifically with that situation, because of like the end and like the things that occur in the meta story that nobody else cares about, but are the reason that I keep buying these games.
Okay.
Like shit happens in that is like super important to the future of the franchise.
Okay. So that's kind of my point and why I'm saying this, guys. Like, I feel like somebody should have to beat the game because they're going to have more information. And more information is never going to be a bad thing. Because even if more information lowers your score, like in my case, I played the game longer and I ended up beating it and I ended up disliking the game more. So if I was going to give the game like an 8, then I would give it like a 6.5, like by the time I beat it, because I was just so fucking over it. Things were so repetitive. There was so much fucking fat on that steak that I couldn't just enjoy it. And it just felt really repetitive and just tedious to me, where it lowered my score. Whereas you fucking played the shit out of it. You completed it. Maybe you're the opposite. The more you kept playing, the more you kept getting into the game, and maybe you'd get a higher score. But regardless of whether we have a differing opinion or not, I think it's objectively true that if you played the game longer, you have more information available at your fingertips than I do because you have more playtime. And I think in most cases that would be true. So it would benefit a fucking reviewer to play a game longer. Yeah? No?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So other
Well,
than like the case of like a puzzle game or like say a fighting game, I think that most people should beat a game unless it's a game you can't really beat. And if you can't beat it, like then you should get to end game. Like say Helldivers 2. You should be able to level up at least like maybe not max out at 50, but if you play Helldivers 2, you should probably at least get to like level 20. I'm sure Dishes would agree with that. Like you should at least unlock most of the stratagems to give an accurate review to the game, you know? There are exceptions. How many times have I heard someone say, yeah, after the first 30 hours, it gets really good about a traditional RPG? By traditional RPG, are you talking about a Japanese RPG or are you talking about a Western style RPG construct? Because there is a difference.
I don't think it really matters, though. It's the point is, like, how many times have you heard that statement, right? Where it's like, oh, after the first 30 hours, shit gets crazy. It's like, cool, but I don't have 30 hours to carelessly invest.
I feel like 30 hours is a little much. I think there's a little bit of a hyperbole there. Like, there's not many games that are like a banger after 30 hours. I would say some games have like a long tutorial. Like, I would say if you only play 10 hours of Dragon's Dogma, that's not a lot, but I would also say that playing Dragon's Dogma for 10 hours or so is fair enough to form an opinion of whether or not the game is for you or not. I've been playing Dragon's Dogma 2 and starting to wonder if the combat skills were more in-depth in the first game. In the first game than the second. What class are you playing, Night Envy? Because it just depends. Seeing if you're like playing an archer, the skills aren't going to be as in-depth because you don't have daggers as well. So there's that.
At the same time, though,
but your skills with the bow are more in-depth.
Yeah. I think in general, for any class, it is possible to, you unlock all the skills, right? You get to rank 9, you unlock all of the skills, but you only have enough like buttons on the controller to map like half, maybe a third of them for some of the classes. Yeah. Whereas you only had to pick and choose like which one or two you weren't going to use in the original game. I think there's a lot more in this, plus like the master skills that you can get by like meeting the right people and talking to them and they give you that. Like there's definitely more options per class in this than there were in the first one.
I've tried the Mystic Spear and Assassin and just noticed I can't change weapons. No, because you can't change weapons. There's only one class that can. So yeah, in that respect, you're more limited than the first game, but also there's more depth to the weapon and combat in general that you have in Dragon's Dogma 2. So it's weird. It's a sequel, but also kind of feels like a prequel sometimes. We've had that discussion before. It's weird. Or roguelikes. Oh yeah, that's a good fucking example too, Parka. Like, yeah, if you're playing a roguelike, you probably don't have to beat the game to give a pretty fair review on that too.
I am closing in on 100 hours of Dragon's Dogma 2, and I don't feel like I'm even halfway through the story. But the fact that like you boot up that game and the title screen just says Dragon's Dogma, it doesn't say Dragon's Dogma 2. The producer said there's like a reason for that and other things that were very cryptic at the time. So yeah, I feel like this is meant to almost be like a reboot more than a sequel.
Yeah. The order, would you say the combat system is more streamlined than the first? I
think it allows you to do more.
Yeah,
with
streamline
less frustration.
Yeah, streamline's probably not the phrase I would use. It's a little more in depth while being more limited is a weird thing. Also can't double jump. Yeah, no, you can't.
You could wall jump as a thief.
As a thief,
and I
yeah.
think something else, but
The Order 1886 is a good example of finishing a game and giving it a lower score based on game length. Yeah, absolutely. Just like I would play certain games, if they dragged on too long, I would also give them a lower score construct.
But like, time out with that though, right? Because and Heavenly Sword, another example of like,
Heavenly
really
Sword, man,
solid game, beautiful visuals for the time, interesting characters, world, storyline, but like press start on the title screen to roll credits was like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah,
including
Heavenly Sword
like
was
watching
so
the
short.
cutscenes.
Yeah.
So that said, great game, but it's short. Is it fair to count that and Order 1886? Is it fair to hit them hard?
I
with a
do
lower score because they're so short?
Yeah, I would, because there's shorter games, and then there's like ridiculous, you went over the line short games. Like in this day and age, if you bought a $70 fully priced AAA game and you beat it in 4 hours, would you be pissed?
I mean, if there's not like good replay value, and if that wasn't something I was
you beat it, and I'm sorry, even if there is replay, I mean, I guess, but who the fuck replays games like God of War 2? You know, like back in the day where I beat the game 7 times.
Right. No one.
Yeah. Be right back. Gonna go eat? No worries, Not Envy. We'll see you in a bit. So that's kind of my point, dude. Like if you buy like, and so for its time, Heavenly Sword and the Order 1886, these are first party, like Heavenly Sword, was it? Yeah, it's Sony. So they were first party AAA games.
Fuck, and those were both like launch titles, so it's really rough to like, let me buy this system, let me get a good game to play on it, and this good game you beat in like one sitting.
Yeah. It's a review based on dollar value. The same line I was reading was, and I'm paraphrasing, I can't see paying $60 for a 4-hour game. I agree with that. Now, can I see paying $60 for an 8-hour game? Absolutely. 8 to 10 hours? That's longer than a movie, right? I mean, that's fine. Especially like Paul said, if there's replay value, stuff like that. There's a line for everyone. Many people won't pay. A lot of people use the equation of like dollar per hour. So if I'm going to pay $60 for a game, I should get 60 hours worth of play. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I'm fine playing a 20-hour game, dude. As a matter of fact, I look forward to it. Like, there's just not every game needs to be a fucking 100 hours. Please, God, no, stop it. But getting back to the point, like, as a reviewer, though, should you beat these games? And if a reviewer, a perfect example of how it could totally affect a game is The Last of Us 2. If somebody played The Last of Us 2 and they played 80% of the game and they gave their review, and somebody reviewed the game and they played it to the end and rolled credits, I'm going to care more about the reviewer who beat the game, because I myself personally hated the fucking game based on the ending. Especially with like the parallel between games and movies these days, as far as like our entertainment. If you look at something like The Last of Us, which is basically like playing a fucking movie, right? Or a TV series, which then became a TV series. If somebody didn't beat the ending, that's like going to watch the ending, you know, it's going to watch a fucking movie, and imagine watching The Sixth Sense and then like you walked out like before the last 30 minutes hit. You would never get the twist.
You got the gist of it though.
Yeah, man, like I feel, especially these days with movies, they're very much in line with like movie, you know, with film entertainment. Hi, Paul. Swoon. Slim Jim, should you have to, if you're a professional video game reviewer, should you have to beat a game to review it? So that's kind of my thing. I do understand your side of it. No? Really? Why is that? Explain. So I see your thing of it, Paul, where there's certain games, like a puzzle game or whatever. But even like a walking simulator, I think you should have to beat it and roll credits, because like sometimes there's twists at the ending, well, I mean, stuff like that.
Yeah, if the whole of the game is the story, like that experience is the reason that you're playing the game, then all of that is important to the review.
Because you can openly talk about the mechanics of a game. Okay, so how much of a game do you have to beat then? Because what if you're only 10 hours into a game? You can't speak on the mechanics of endgame class swapping in Dragon's Dogma 2. You're not going to know what all of your final abilities are in Assassin's Creed games. So you're not going to know what the end game is, at least 70 or 80%. Okay, so what about my example of The Last of Us 2? If I would have reviewed The Last of Us 2, I would have been annoyed by Joel getting killed and the way he was killed. I don't care that he died, but I don't like the way he was killed. It was stupid. And I didn't like the character of Abby. So I would have probably given the game still, though, based on like technical merit, the fact that the combat mechanics were better than ever, stuff like that, the graphics, all that stuff, you know, graphical fidelity, the music, all that. I would have probably given the game like a solid 8. But because of the ending, I fucking hated it, and that game sits firmly at a 6.5. Like, the ending totally soured my review of the game. And so if somebody would have had the same experience as me, they would never have gotten to the ending, and I feel like you can't call that a real review. If anything, it's a review in progress, an impression, whatever you want to call it, but it's not a review. I feel like you can't give a review if you haven't played the game to the end. To be fair, there's a lot of people who've beaten games and still don't understand shit about them. Yeah, but at least I mean, I don't know anything about being a professional critic of movies, Dishes. I know what I like. So I could tell you what I thought of the story, what I thought of the cinematography and stuff like that, but I don't have a fucking degree. But, I mean, I could tell you what I thought of the movie because I watched the whole movie. I didn't watch 70% of it. First impressions can be what it's called. Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm saying if a reviewer should have to beat the game to review it. Because there are several reviewers that I've seen called out because they can tell, like, you know how in Zelda you've got your hearts in the corner, right? And I've seen footage of someone doing a YouTube review, and all of their footage from Zelda has like 5 hearts. And there's no way this motherfucker is at the end game with 5 hearts, dude. And all of their footage has it. It was me, Barry. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. And people will call them out and be like, you haven't even beat the game. And you can tell they haven't beat the game because of what they'll say about the game. They'll talk about Zelda, how like, oh, I didn't really like how you all the weapons can be broken, and it's like, well, you didn't get to this part of the game where you get the Master Sword, and that doesn't break. So just shit like that, where you can listen to or read a review, and you can recognize, being someone that has played the game more than them, that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Nature of the industry has changed as well. Yeah, it has, but like, it's still sad that people, not so much in print with a full-time staff. Yeah, but even someone on YouTube, Dishes. I'm not even talking about magazines right now. I'm talking about people on YouTube, because that's where most reviews come from. Who the fuck's reading a review in a magazine? When's the last time you read a review on a website, Paul?
When's the last time I learned how to read? Not yet.
Yeah, never. Paul's illiterate. He's just a handsome face.
That's why I struggle with chat so much.
That's cool. That's why we're friends. We're in an illiteracy support group. Ah, that's why you're friends. See? Fucking Slim Jim typed it as I said it. Yeah, exactly. We don't fucking read, dude. I just play video games for all the cool fucking moving pictures. So, but if you're going to be someone that's going to have a YouTube channel that does this professionally, that it's your job, you're doing this full time, I would expect you to have to play games. I'm not telling you to be fucking Gerard the completionist. Like, you don't have to complete a game. If you did complete a game, does that give you more information to give a more in-depth and accurate review? Absolutely. But I'm not requiring that, but I say that you should roll credits, man. Other than like a puzzle game or something like that, is there any other time you would say it's okay to not beat the game, Paul?
But even like at some point you brought up like service games and like at least get to end game, and like honestly, like straight up with a service game, end game is like everything. Everything before end game, whether it's 3 hours or 40 hours, is just the tutorial prepping you for end game. So
Yeah.
I feel like your takes, your opinions on what Endgame also offers is like almost more important than your takes on the whole rest of the game. With something like that, with something like Destiny or I don't does Helldivers doesn't really fall into that category because it kind
No,
of like, you're
Helldivers
just
doesn't
constantly
really. Yeah, I
moving
mean,
forward in general.
yeah.
There isn't like an end game yet for that, but
Okay, let me ask you this: what do you use reviews for? I personally use reviews to help me decide if I want to buy the game. I can't do that with a review that doesn't reach endgame. Yeah, I would agree with that. Me personally, I mean, I don't know. How do you go about buying a game, Paul? Like, what entices you? Like, how do you make a decision to buy a game?
I mean, generally, it's I'll see like a launch trailer, reveal trailer, or whatever. I'm pretty on top of showcases and just like whatever that. Oh, this is a trailer that dropped today. For some reason, it's in front of me now. And a lot of times, like that shit will just like it's vibes, good or bad. And if it's good, I will remember the name of that forever. And every time like a new trailer or something comes out, I'm just staying on top of it. And I mean, that's the way that I live my life. I'm always looking forward to new games, and I think I've only been disappointed, like truly disappointed by a purchase like twice.
So, would you say you hit up reviews sometimes before you pick up a game, though?
I mean, I will look at them, but more often than not, it's me either like whatever they hate on, me being like, oh, I can live with that. That's fine. That doesn't bother me. Or me being like, oh, cool. They also like it. Because more often than not, I have already decided if I'm going to buy some shit.
Gotcha. So me personally, Construct, I'll use it as like, what do they call it? Confirmation bias. You're looking to be validated. So most times I know what games I'm going to get. I knew I was going to pick up Helldivers 2, for example, or like Dragon's Dogma 2. I knew I was going to get those. I saw those. Like Paul said, I fucking vibe with it. And some games I'll look up more information on if I'm somewhat hesitant, or just because I'm hyped about the game and I want to read more about it. There is the chance that a game comes out and it's total crap. I have been disappointed, here and there, but usually not. And so, generally speaking, that's what I'll look to read a review for, is just to give me like a little bit more information, give me a little bit more hype. And yeah, like if someone can't speak on anything outside of the beginning of the game or the first 10 or even 20 hours in some cases, I don't know, man, it seems pretty fucking disingenuous. And I wouldn't even call it a review. Like Slim Jim said, I would call it like a first impressions, and that's fine. And even that sometimes is not good enough, because Paul and I both watched that first impressions that was put up about Dragon's Dogma 2, and that was a fucking atrocity.
If the trailer doesn't state the name of the game when the logo pops up, then you've lost me as a buyer.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of sites just hire on a sort of contract basis, so people gigging, I assume if they're trying to do it for a living, they're juggling multiple articles or whatever. Sounds like a fucking them problem, Dishes. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it that a game journalist doesn't have enough time to beat a fucking game. It's your job. Play the fucking game and beat it. Otherwise, don't do game reviews.
To that point, like with they're like Dishes talking about with the written word, Dishes, I assume I can't read.
Yeah. You can tell because his logo is green.
Okay.
No one else in chat has a green logo.
Excellent. It might not be that they weren't able to beat it or whatever, but just like yeah, they are trying to be the first one to cover it, the first one to submit an article so they can get that paycheck. So yeah, they're writing this up off of 7 hours of gameplay instead of after rolling credits.
Then they could just do what IGN does, game in progress. A review in progress, right? Where they start the article and then they'll just keep adding to it as they play through the game. That's the way to do it.
Sure. If the editor is okay with that. If not, you just got to submit it, pretend you played the whole thing, hope they run with you. Like it's a bunch of bullshit about trying to collect a paycheck doing this as a job. That's a whole different problematic situation. So let's eliminate the print stuff and try to stick with like YouTube videos as the topic.
They're not using full-time staff a lot of the time. I mean, if you're someone that's
like
YouTube,
never.
what staff? Dishes. If someone has a YouTube channel and they're like a full-time guy, like say SkillUp or someone like that, there is no staff unless they have like an editor or something like that. And that's what I'm talking about, because that shit's more popular than like a magazine. Like People don't fucking read magazines anymore anyway. So even the sites you're talking about, even them, the guys that they do have are usually full-time, and then they also have some gig people as well. Like if you're looking at IGN or GameSpot, you'll see a lot of the same names. So it's not all freelancers like you think. That's why there's been all these layoffs in the gaming industry for guys at different varying websites and all that shit. Because our audience doesn't know any better. And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that we should hold people to a higher standard. And I don't think you're being toxic by expecting someone to finish, like, to do their fucking job. If somebody brings me 80% of a hamburger when I order a hamburger at a restaurant, did they do their job? That's all I'm saying. If you didn't fucking beat the game, which I'm not going to require you to beat 100% of platinum the fucking game or get 1,000 achievement score, right? But at least roll credits. Just finish making me the burger. If you make me my burger and fries, great. If you didn't bring me fucking ketchup, cool. I'll go get it my own. No big deal.
So you know how some places they'll bring out the burger and it's the bottom bun, the burger, probably cheese, and then like next to it, it's like lettuce, onions, whatever else, and the top half of the bun.
Yeah.
And like I think that's done so that you can put on your own condiments and then put the rest together. But do you hate that or do you tolerate that? Because they made the whole burger, but they presented it to you in a way that required assembly.
It's fine because the assembly's minimal. It's not like Korean barbecue where I'm cooking my own food. That's fine. All I'm doing is putting the finishing touch on it. Well, the guys making those videos don't give any fucks because people get paid when people click. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, Dishes. That's cool if you just want to say, well, it is what it is, and just accept the fact that people suck at their jobs, but I'm not like that. I want someone that's doing a fucking review for a game to at least beat it. If you got a game like Slim Jim, even then they gotta use engaging language. Like Slim Jim, have you beat Baldur's Gate 3 yet? And if you haven't beat Baldur's Gate 3, what chapter are you in? What percentage do you think that you've made it through the game?
I was equating a burger that you have to finish yourself to an incomplete like 80% burger, but yeah, it didn't quite match up.
It didn't translate. It's fine. I knew what Paul was going for. Just take the mulligan. It's fine.
Next time we are at a restaurant and they do that, I'm gonna throw the top of your bun on the ground and see how you react.
Excellent.
Not to me doing that, but to you just not having the bun.
Yeah. I haven't, but I think I'm pretty adept in giving an engaging and accurate review. I'm in the 3rd chapter. Cool. What about when one of your favorite characters dies in the end sequence? I mean, you won't be able to speak on that because you haven't gotten that far. So fuck you and your shitty review. See what I'm saying? What if you have a character who's like your everything in that game and they die and there's nothing you can do to fucking change that? It's just part of the narrative. That's not gonna fucking ding that game down by a point? Or what if there's no like wrap up? The game just kind of fucking ends and it's rushed and it's messy and the pacing is all off and it was nowhere near as strong as chapter 1. What if somebody only played chapter 1 of Baldur's Gate and they still played that shit for like 50 hours? And chapter 1, I've heard from many people, is like the most refined section of Baldur's Gate because it was in early access forever, and they took all of that feedback from fans and they incorporated it into that first portion of the game. So I've heard lots of people talk about how Baldur's Gate is very fucking front-loaded. Do people really want a spoiler-filled review? No, I want an accurate number. And I feel like you can't give me an accurate number if you haven't gone to the end. Because let's say you were going to give Baldur's Gate a 9 out of 10, but the ending sucked. And not that it was just subjectively bad, that you just didn't like it, but that it was just objectively bad, that it was rushed, it was messy, it was just really fucking shitty, and they just wrapped it all up. And just, here's an ending. There's many movies that are like that, where the movie was pretty solid and the ending fucking sucked. And there's other movies that are okay, and the ending is awesome, and it like makes the film. The movie The Mist. Dude, that fucking movie, it was a pretty solid film, but then the ending, mind-blowing. And I was like, fuck. That ending is like in my fucking brain, dude, and that's one of my favorite, like, you know, suspense, horror, thriller, whatever the fuck you want to call it, movies, because of the ending with Thomas Jane. Reviews are all subjective anyways. Baldur's Gate is a great example. From what I understand, pretty much any character can die. What if the reviewer kills off whoever the sexy elf is? Yeah, exactly. That too.
Or you just never interact with them and like never have them join your party.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't have to be a spoiler-filled review, Slim Jim, but you could be like, I really enjoyed the first chapter. It was really well-paced. It was done well. The narrative was great. All of the dialogue options I had were incredibly in-depth and affected every little thing I did. And then once I got to chapter 3, it didn't really matter what choices I made. Everything was kind of set in stone. A good example of that, Mass Effect 3. Everyone was so mad because everything they did in Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2 was all about choice and everything matters. And if you do this, this guy will leave. If you do this, this character will die. This character will never forgive you because you made this choice. And in Mass Effect 3, everything just kind of ended. And I'm one of the people that didn't tear apart Mass Effect 3 because of the ending, because I was of the belief that, well, maybe that's how it's supposed to go. Like, it doesn't really matter what you do in the end. It's all about the journey, not really the ending. So maybe the ending sucking isn't that big of a deal. But many people, to the point where they patched that game, like they bitched about the ending of Mass Effect 3 because it not only ruined the game for them, but like ruined the previous 2 games. The nature of the internet itself has provided the perfect environment for opportunistic shitbags to have a voice and profit from it. I mean, I guess, but what's that have to do with finishing a game to do a review, dishes? The book's ending is different, by the way. Stephen King allegedly liked the movie ending better. Yeah, I heard that. I heard that, Parka. So, yeah. In closing on that subject, if you're a fucking video game reviewer, if you're going to give a review on a game, and you're gonna call it a review, beat the game. You don't have to complete it. Some people might require that, and some people may not require what I'm saying. They might, if you play the game for 4 hours, that's enough for them. But I'm gonna say you should have to beat a game, you should have to roll credits before you can give an accurate review, because anything up until that point is an impressions video. So there.
Yeah, I suppose. Like, to completely tear open a new issue,
but
I just like big games. I feel like skipping side content is not like, obviously we're not going for a platinum. You don't have to do all of it,
sure.
But like skipping out on side content is like not acceptable either for reviews. Like the friend that I was telling you about, he was playing Final Fantasy 16. He did like 4 or 5 of the side quests, and he wasn't really vibing with them because these side quests are admittedly like of a lower quality.
Yeah, they're not very good.
Story.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 16 side quests are not good.
So he stops doing them. I send him a trailer for the Leviathan DLC before it came out, and he's like, "Oh, cool! Looks like we get a mount in this." And like, bro, he never got a mount because the mount in the game is tied to doing a side quest, and he stopped doing them.
So you would argue that because your friend never did the side quest, it would have affected his review of the game because he would have had a mount.
I mean, yeah. Or even taking the friend out of the picture, how many reviewers who skipped side quests to just get through the story so that they could talk about that,
yeah,
also didn't know there's a mount in the game.
Yeah. I would argue that a game like The Witcher 3 is an anomaly construct. And The Witcher 3 is one of those few games where I would require someone, if I'm going to take your review seriously, I would say you should have to be able to speak on some of the side quests, because that's some of the best content in the game. However, I'm saying that as someone who has done all of the side quests in The Witcher 3. If you're speaking to an audience that doesn't know any better, maybe it wouldn't weigh as heavily on them. But to Paul's point, they should have at least done some of the side content to where they can speak on it. Not everything can be as good as the Pan quest, but especially in the beginning of the game. What is... There's a quest in The Witcher 3 where the lord of a town had like an affair and had a baby, and they aborted it and buried it under a tree and all that. They called like the red something or the crimson something. I'm fucking remembering back a few years, and there's a lot of fucking quests in The Witcher, but this one's pretty early on, and it lasted for a while through the game. And I would honestly argue that it's as important and as impactful as any of the main story quests. So yeah, while you're playing Tears of the Kingdom, you constantly said that you got sidetracked on your way to whatever destination you had already picked. Yes, perfect example, Construct. So playing the game in a natural way, you're going to get sidetracked and things are going to happen. I feel like if you're just reviewing the game and you're just golden pathing it, I'm saying the bare minimum is beating it. Rolling credits. If someone went through Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and all they did was golden path it and do the story mission and they beat the game, fine. They know enough about the game to speak on doing a review. Did they enjoy the game as much as they could have? No. And like I said earlier, more information is not going to be bad. If they would have taken the time to do like those side quests, get distracted, you know, go to this cave because you're out exploring, or do all the shrines and experience all the puzzles and shit like that, then you may have enjoyed the game a bit more. You would have had to play it longer, but again, more information is not bad because that's going to give you a more fleshed out opinion in your review. I'm just saying that at the bare minimum, you should at least roll credits. And if you're pressed for time, if you're doing 6 reviews at one time because a bunch of fucking games came out, fine, plow through it. But I feel like you're missing out on shit. But you should at least beat it, though. Like, there's plenty of games you get a feel for them. Like, I understand what Slim Jim was saying earlier. You can get a feel for the mechanics of Hogwarts Legacy, the combat, how the spells work. You can automatically just look at it and be like, look how great the graphics are. Most of the environments look pretty much the same. So if you played the game for 10 to 15 hours, that's probably how the game's going to look everywhere. The storyline is going to be the big thing. You're not going to know all the twists at the end. Like, even if you can kind of put the puzzle together and figure it out, you're not going to know because you didn't, fucking see it happen. So that would be the big thing there. You can't really speak on the story. So you can talk about the graphics, the music, the combat, all that stuff, but you can't speak to the narrative. And that's going to be a big deal for people. And I'm not saying you have to do a spoiler-filled review, but you can say if the story is good or not. And I feel like you can't say the story is good if you didn't experience all the story. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I suppose so.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, beat your games. Long story short.
And don't talk about them at all until you do.
Yeah, I mean, or like you said, at least be honest about it. Like, hey, I haven't beat the game yet. This is how much I played.